Okay, guys. Well, to be honest, I don't like to stand here, but we have a technical issue, so I will be a little bit more standing here, okay? First of all, I would like to ask for an applause, okay? Why? Because I know how much it takes to organize a conference, how much it takes to be in the conference. So can we have an applause for the organization? Can we? Thank you. Well, I also have a second reason for the applause, okay? Let me be honest. Why? Because I was asked to talk about metrics. And I said, really about metrics? A boring topic like that? But, you know, so in the end, if you don't applaud, at least you already did it in the beginning, okay? So I will be happy anyway. So, let's see if it works. No? Another technical issue? Okay, ahoy. My name... Oh, I hate this. So my name is Joel Oliveira, and I'm a tester, and that's everything that matters for now, okay? Any other testers out there? Yes, raise your hand, don't be shy. Okay, so we have some developers, okay, a few, and project managers? No? Okay, so we can do jokes about project managers, and about developers, you know, you are also welcome here. It's okay to look for a promotion for a QA, okay, so don't be shy, you can always get it. So before moving on, let's see. Yeah, okay, now it's working. Before moving on, some disclaimers, okay? So first of all, I'm a little bit sick. I don't know if you can see it in my voice. The difference of the temperatures, that's what hands up. Some more disclaimers. So if you don't understand something about my English, just raise the hand and I will repeat it again, okay? My wife says that it's not because I'm sick. It's always difficult to understand me, so don't worry about that. And some more disclaimers about the topic of the talk. So this is my experience. It's not a one-size-fits-all, it's not a universal truth. So this is based on my experience. It does not mean that it also fits on your context, okay? So if not, don't worry, just throw away what does not fit for you and try to use what works in your context. So let's start with you. So are you using any test metrics? Yes? Raise the hand if you are using it. Can you give some? Oh, most of you are not, or you are shy. So can you give us some examples of test metrics that you use? Any? Defect leakage? Anyone else? No? No metrics at all? Liters of coffee. That's a good one. Okay, so... Sorry? Number of green flags. Unit testing. Okay, unit testing green flags. Okay, okay. Are you using something like coverage? No? Number of defects, test passing rate. Okay, so you are using some. So we use these metrics to report on our progress, also to share with the managers about the status of our project, but we really trust on them. Well, in some cases we do, some we don't. But why do we need metrics? So are you familiar with this sentence? Yes? So what gets measured can be managed or gets managed. There is also another one, a similar one, that is, well, if it's measured, then it can be done, okay? And we will basically looking into this. And when we are looking why we need metrics, we need this to try to answer these questions. So why do we test? What are the test objectives and why we test it? And of course, we need to measure our progress against the test objectives. And that's basically what metrics will give us the answer. So metrics will help us to give the answer, how far are we in our test objectives? So why do they matter? Well, the metrics can help the decision makers. They can help to make the decisions, but they can also help to give a perception of the status of our projects. Okay, and sometimes the perceptions are even more important than the facts, right? When you have a good feeling that your project is good, or not so good to go to production. And if you have metrics that are able to sustain that, it's even better, right? Because then it's not just your gut feeling, you also have something to support that. We have the micro? Not yet? Okay, so we are still with the technical issue. Okay, so, not yet? It's coming, okay. Okay, because I really like to be there and not here, so let's see. Okay, so while it's still trying to get it done, let's talk about when we are using metrics in the wrong way. Okay, when we are using it in the wrong way, we tend to yes? Yeah. No? Can you guys hear me? Yes? No? Okay, now it works. Yes? Okay. So let's talk about this illusion of control. What is illusion of control? So we all like numbers, right? And the numbers will keep us in a safe zone. So whenever we have numbers, we feel safer, right? It's something that we know, something that we can stand for. But we also have these vanity metrics. Do you know what is a vanity metric? Right? So did you ever had a situation in your project where you had these very nice dashboards, everything green, and you really know that that product is not ready to go to production, even if everything is green? Did you ever had that situation, or just me that I'm not so lucky? No? Never? Then it's just me. Okay, looks like I'm in the wrong projects with the wrong teams. Well, but we love numbers. We like numbers until the moment that they lie to us. Okay, and why? Well, today we talked about zero defects, right? We talked about it's more like a mindset. But actually, when that mindset is pushed out to some teams, they will take it quite literally, saying, okay, now we cannot report defects. Because if we are reporting defects, then it's no longer zero defect. And it's quite important to have the right mindset, and metrics can help you to have that mindset in the wrong or in the right way or in the wrong way. It's quite frequent, for example, to have teams that say, oh, we are running thousands of tests. Is that good? Why? Why do you need all those tests? Are they bringing value, or are you actually just spending money and time and CPU without any added value? So in most cases, the tests are there. If you have these kind of numbers, probably they are automated. Every single day they are running, and no one is looking if they are passing, failing, or if they are really finding anything. You are running because you can. You are running them because it looks nice. It's a vanity metric. You can say, oh, we have all this amount of tests that are running. Managers are happy, so you have test automation, but value, it's quite small. So keep in mind that the values will give you this confidence, but not always the true. So when a measure becomes a target, then it's no longer a good measure. Okay? And I can give you some very good examples. For example, in one of my recent projects, we have a target for defect density. We have a target for response time when a defect is found. You know what happens? Now we are spending more time fighting who will take the defect than actually fixing the defect and improving the quality. Because now the measure, it's not a tool, it's the target. Because if we fail that target, then you need to pay money, then you have some penalties. So that's no longer a good measure because it's changing now the way the teams work. Talking about context, so you know that context is quite important when we are talking about software testing. It's also the same when we are talking about metrics. If you take the metric out of the context, it's just another number. So it does not bring any added value. It's just a number. And the same number, the same metric, depending on the context, it can be also a fail or a success story. It really, really depends on the context. Let's look for some examples. For example, if you have Jira, probably you have something like this, right? The pie charts, where you see the tests that fail, the tests that pass, and in this case, as you can see, 60% more or less, given or taken, it's green. So what do you think? Pass rate is a good metric and a good result in this case or not? Right? It depends, right? The good old answer that all the consultants learn to give. So if I give you some more context, what do you think now? Is it good? Yes? I see something. Yes? So it looks good. Why? Because you didn't complete the tests and you already passed the go live date. So how can that be good? It means that you are already late, right? You are on the week 16 or 15 and the go live was on week 12 and you didn't complete your tests. So it's the same numbers, the same metrics, but now you have a context, right? Your project is already late. So that's not good. What it looked good in the previous slide, now it does not look good anymore. So different context. So now you are still ahead of the go live. Does it look better now? Yes? It depends. Well, actually it looks better, but if you look to the orange, to the amber, it's growing week after week, right? So what does it mean? It means that probably you do not have enough capacity on the QA side to retest. If you keep this trend, what will happen is that you will fail. Because by the end of the date of your project, if you are keeping the same trend, if you don't change anything, then you will not be in the passing rate that is required. So you are still behind schedule. Or a different scenario, probably more common one. Now you don't see any ambers, you see some reds. So what does it mean? It means that the tests are still failing. So it means that you have open defects that the team, that developers are not able to fix. Is it a common scenario in your experience? Yes? No? Yeah? So this means, yeah, okay, I see 2 thumbs up. So this means that probably, you know, the code is quite complex, or you have some lack of capacity on the developing side, or those developers are also busy delivering new features, and that means that all these defects, they are in the queue. So you are blocked. You are not able to progress as fast as you would like to. Again, keeping the same trend, you will fail the milestone. But in this case, it's not because of you. It's because of the capacity to deliver from the developer side. So depending on the context, as you can see, the same numbers, the same metrics will give you different information that you can use to help the decision makers, but also to change their perception about the project status. Okay? So this is quite important. So again, a code. Yes, you can have all these data, all these quantitative data to support your decisions. However, you know, you still have your most important tool, your brain as a tester, to look into the data and to make your own judgment. Okay? Probably sooner you will have AI doing that for you, but for now, I still believe that the most important tool that we can have as a testers is our own brain, so don't put it aside. Talking about collecting metrics. You can collect metrics in a manual way, you can collect metrics in an automatic way. You should collect them in a way that you can trust on them. Okay? Let me share another story from a new project. I joined a project, and it was a project, let's say a large one, with more than 100 developers. And, you know, as a QA, we trust, but we validate, right? So I said, okay, this is the status of the project, let me try to validate it. I looked to the data, I looked to the reports, and they were not matching. So 1 + 1 was not 2. I said, well, that's strange. So I tried to look for the reports, I tried to look for the numbers, I double-checked it, and it was still not matching. So I went to the guy that was sending these reports every single day to top management. And you can imagine the size of the project with more than 100 developers, and everyone was looking to these reports every single day. And say, well, you know, the numbers are not matching. Is something missing here? And the guy said, yeah, you know what, we are collecting all these metrics manually. It's a lot of work, and we are not always updating it daily, but we are sending the report daily. Okay? So that means that the information that was sent to the decision makers, to top management of this big, large project was actually not correct, okay? Most of the days. I think some of the metrics they updated monthly. So you can imagine that, during 30 days, everything that they were sending was wrong, and no one was even challenging because no one was looking to the details. So everyone saying, yeah, this looks good, we trust the numbers, we trust the metrics. So again, not the best use. So it needs to be automatic as much as possible to prevent this time-consuming, to provide this human error, to prevent this human bias. And if you do it manually, when you send out a report, it's already outdated, right? So you can imagine a big team like this, things are changing every minute. So you need to have live data, live metrics to be able to report on them. So automate everything that is related with collecting the metrics, with generating the reports, but not the interpretation of the results. That's something that you still need to do yourself, and that cannot be automated. So let's talk a little bit about culture, okay? And let me give you another example. I'm not an expert on football, but probably you know Zidane, this French player. He retired, and some time ago, I think it was in his last match or one of the last matches, he just did a movement like this and threw the other guy to the floor, right? So he had some, after that, he had a scar in the head. That's not what we want to promote as sports, right? It's not ethical, non-violent, so that's not what we want to teach our kids when they play football, right? You know what he received after that? No? He received a statue with that movement. So it's bad. We say, no, don't do it. It's not what we want to teach. But actually what we are telling to our kids is that if you do that, if you go to a football match and if you start kicking the other guys, you will get a statue in the end, okay? So we need to be careful what message we are passing by with metrics, because that's the same thing. Okay? If you use the metrics, it's like a hammer, right? You can use the hammer to build something, or you can use the hammer to destroy something. Metrics is the same. If you are punishing the teams because of the metrics, then they will give you what you want. You want good numbers, you will get good numbers anyway, even if they are not reflecting the reality. So you need to be careful with that, and you need to make sure that the metrics are helping the teams. It's not the other way around. So the team should not be driven by metrics. The metrics should support them in their work. Okay, this is quite important, and especially if you are looking for large projects with SLAs, with penalties involved, with money involved, metrics will be quite relevant. So you need to be careful on the way you are using metrics. So let's talk about some metrics that I believe, in my opinion, again, my experience, they are not my favorite. So they look good, but in the end, I believe that they will tell you a little bit about or not enough about the quality. So the first one, and one of the most used ones, test coverage, right? So we love test coverage. But test coverage is actually not about quality, it's about quantity, right? And we know as a testers that quantity and quality is not the same thing. Test coverage is not about how are you improving your code, your solution. It's about the coverage, and when we are talking about coverage, probably if I ask in the audience, you will all understand different things about coverage. It could be requirements coverage, it could be user story, it could be line, branch, whatever. It could be function coverage, so you have different ways of measuring the coverage, but none of them will give you quality. You can see that as something that will reduce the risk, but it's actually not improving the quality per se. So the second one is test executed. Why I believe that this is not a good metric? Again, it's talking about the activity, not about the output, not about the improving quality, right? So for example, if you have small tests, easy ones, right, your metric goes skyrocket. And then you have one guy that is running that very critical test with lots of detail, and he needs to be quite focused, so it takes a lot of time to run it, and his metric will be much slower, right? So who is giving more value with the same metric? So again, I believe that it's not the best metric to use. And the last one, defects found. Well, when you are finding defects, we already heard that before, we are not the ones that did the defect, right? We are not changing the code, so developers did. So from the testing point of view, that's actually not saying much about the tests. It's saying more about the code. And finding defects, again, if you use this metric in the wrong way, it will change the culture of the team. So the team will not raise defects. They will talk with the developers, they will fix the defects, because between all of them, then finding defects will be seen as a bad thing, okay? So again, we need to be quite careful with this. So what we can use then instead of this, again, probably not to impress, but to provide some added value, some information about the progress, about the quality of your project. So again, 3 ones. Defect escape rate. Do you know this one? No? So basically, in a simple way, is the number of defects that you miss in your phase and that they are found in the next phase. Okay, it could be the ones that you miss in component testing and then they are found in integration, or the ones that you miss in integration, then they are found in UAT, in acceptance, or the ones that you miss in acceptance and they are found later on in production by the customer. So a lower number, it's good because it means that you are finding more defects, you are leaving less defects to escape. The second one, and actually this is a 2-in-1, it's MTTR and aging. MTTR, do you know this one? Mean time to recover. It's basically the time that it takes from the moment that you report the defect until the moment that the defect is fixed for testing. Why I'm also adding aging? Because MTTR is usually for the defects that are proved to be valid, and you only get that time when the ticket is delivered to you. If you remember one of the charts that I show, when you have this red part, it means that the developers are not delivering to you for weeks, then you will not have any bad numbers on the MTTR, because MTTR is only calculated when the defect is delivered for testing. Aging, by the other side, it's the opposite. It's only looking for the defects that are open. So you always need to look for these 2 metrics as a pair to get the best view on the number of defects and on the status. The last one, reopen rate. And this is both about fixed quality. So are you able to fix it at first, or you are delivering something and then it's going back and then you need to fix it again. And it's also about communication. So if you have a high rate of reopen defects, you need to understand why. Is it the code that is hard to fix? So you need to restart the code, you need to rework the code, or is just a communication issue where you are not able to communicate the issue correctly to the developers, or the developers are not understanding what the issue is because they are lacking knowledge, business knowledge, whatever. So this is also a very good metric to improve the communication and the project itself. Let's talk now about the elephant in the room. The big AI, right? The big elephant in the room, AI. And, well, AI is changing for sure, right? We just saw the previous talk where now you will have lots of automated tests. So you need to look to the metrics, to the traditional metrics in a different way, right? If you have metrics like number of test cases, and now you have test cases being generated, of course you need to look to the metrics from a different way. This will mean new opportunities, new metrics that probably you will need to come out. But by the end of the day, I believe that the risks are still the same. Okay, so the risks of misusing metrics is still there, and again, you need to focus more on the value and less on the volume, because with AI, we know that the volume is quite high, and if you are just looking for, again, for coverage, you will get a huge coverage, but in the end of the day, you will realize that most of the tests, they are not doing anything useful, so you always need to look for the value. How much time do I have? Still okay? 10 minutes, okay, so I will be ahead of time. So let me talk about the key takeaways, okay? So the first one, you always need to look for the context. Please do not ignore the context. So metrics are really easy to collect, but they are also really, really easy to be misunderstood and misused. Again, like the hammer, okay? It can be used for the good reasons, it can be used for the bad reasons. You need to understand how to use the metrics, and it's not the case that you always use the same metrics. You need to understand what is the message that you want to convey, and what are the metrics that will support your message, okay? How can you help the decision makers to get the same perception as you based on the metrics? The second one is measure the impact and not the activity. So we talk, for example, about test case that is executed, right? That's the activity. That's not what you want to measure. You want to measure what is the real impact, the added value that those metrics will bring to the system. So focus on the impact, on the added value, not on the activity. AI, of course, will reinforce this need. Okay? So AI will reinforce the need to increase the efficiency. We also heard that most of the companies that are looking for test automation, they are looking for test automation to save costs, right? Guess what? They are looking for AI for exactly the same reason. So they are looking for AI as a very quick and easy way to cut down the costs. So when we are talking about metrics for AI, we need to look about efficiency, and as we heard, probably it will not help if we are using the right metrics. Don't chase perfect numbers, okay? Again, numbers should not be the target. They are a tool that will help you, or that should help you to get better, to improve your process, to improve your quality. If you are looking for numbers as a target, you will get that. If you ask for a number, you will get it, even if that does not reflect the truth. So if you ask for less defects, you will get less defects. Why? Because somehow they will report less. If you pay by the number of lines of code to a developer, developers, they know what to do, right? They will multiply the numbers of lines of code, even if they don't do anything. Just they put some sleep message there, some comments code, and if you receive by lines of code, you will get lines of code. If you pay by defects, you will get defects. Lots of them, okay? They can be rejected, they can say, oh, this is not really a defect, it's an improvement, and then you go into the fight between developers and between QAs, what is a defect, what is an improvement, and you spend more time talking about a color of the button than actually the value that that feature will bring to the users. Good metrics drive improvement, not just reporting. So if you have these nice dashboards with everything green, with the very nice charts, but they are not really useful. They are just for the vanity, saying, oh, we have these nice reports. We are the best ones in the company with all these amazing metrics. But if they are not helping you to get better, then probably you are looking for the wrong metrics. Okay? Well, another quote, the goal is to turn data into information. Right? We moved already in our generation between a moment where we didn't have enough data. Now I will say we have too much data, and we need to look into that data and transform it into information. But more than that, we need to transform this information now into insights, into useful information that can help us to do better, to improve our process, to improve the quality, to get better decisions, and to support the decision makers. And we should be more or less there. So, Diki, and I don't know if you have any questions, I will be available. You also have my contacts there.
So thank you
Welcome.
And we have few questions. So first one, any tips on how to measure value of individual tests? How to identify the valuable ones?
Okay, so how to identify the value of individual tests, not testers?
Tests.
Tests, okay, because I also received that question, how to measure performance of testers, and you should not, okay? But how to measure the value of the test, that's an easy one. Well, you need to measure the number of defects that you are finding with each test. And don't be afraid to retire tests. If you have a test that you are always running and not finding anything new, so probably it's a good idea to just retire that test. If you have a metric talking about number of tests, then you will say, oh no, I will not delete tests, because then my metric will go down, right? Again, it's a wrong metric because it's talking about quantity, not about quality. So the question, simple one, is have a metric to have the number of defects found per each test, and that will raise the defects that are really adding value.
Okay, second question. Any example when you used metric as a hammer, but for damaging instead of building?
Oh, how many examples?
That's my question, by the way.
Yeah, well, yeah, lots. Again, it depends on the culture, right? And the wrong metrics can really, really damage the culture. As I said, I'm in a large project, more than 100 developers, and I can tell you that we spend lots and lots of time fighting, okay? I already spent days, just to find the component, the team that will own the defect. Defect is already fixed. It's done, it's tested. I just need to say, okay, who will take it so that I can close it? And then we spend days, several meetings, a couple of persons attending each meeting just to know who will accept it. Why? Because we have a metric about defects per component. And no one will accept it. They say, oh no, my manager will not accept the defect. I cannot have a defect. Okay? So yes, again, when you use the metrics as a target, that's what you get. So you are changing the behavior. You are using it as a hammer to a point that no one wants to get it. Okay? Because they will be penalized, they will need to pay money, they will receive less bonus in the end of the year. So everyone is fighting back. And a lot of people is fighting back in a huge project like this to not get the defects. Okay? So be quite careful when you use metrics. They can really be misused.
Any other question from audience?
You mentioned test coverage.
Yep.
Is not a good metric. But how else can I show that testing is testing the right things when we're testing them right if I'm not showing some coverage to maybe requirements?
Okay, so I don't know if you heard that. So how can I use a metric to show that I'm testing the right things instead of test coverage? Yeah. So test coverage does not show that you are testing the right thing, right? It just shows that you are testing something, right? When you have, I remember some projects where you say, oh, we want to have 100% test coverage, right? Or 100% automated test coverage, even worse, right? I can tell you that I already tested safety critical systems like satellites and planes, and not even on those cases we had 100% of test coverage. Okay? So test coverage is really, really one of the worst metrics in my opinion. How can you show that you are testing the right things? Well, using other metrics, for example, the number of defects that you leave to escape, okay? Or the number of critical defects that you are finding. Okay? So these will help you. It's not about the quantity of the tests that you have, it's about the quality. It's about the defects that you are able to prevent. So in this case, less is actually more. Even if they are automated, right? When you have 100,000 automated tests, you say, oh, it doesn't cost anything. They are just running there. Wrong. They cost, because you need to maintain them. And cloud is not cheap. I don't know if you realize that. Everyone was saying, oh, let's move it to cloud, it's quite cheap. Right? And then when you receive the first invoice, you say, well, it's not cheap at all. It's a big invoice. So now you say, oh, we need to shut down some things. Okay? But all these amount of tests, they are still taking a lot of time, running on the servers, running on the cloud, so the invoice is quite high. So instead of focusing on quantity, you should focus on quality. Find the ones that are really value for the customer, okay? What is the business valuing? It's the huge amount of tests, or it's making sure that that specific feature is still working release after release. Okay? So we need to identify, again, in your context, what is the value for the business. Okay? There is no point on testing login 1,000 times, but most probably that's what we have in our automated tests. And then that special feature that is really complex and it's really critical, probably we test it once and it was working and we don't touch it again. And then when it fails, P1, everyone is called, right? Every phone is ringing and we are in panic mode. Why? Because it was not tested, because it's quite complex. So we need to understand, again, what is the value. That's where the metrics can help to optimize our process.
So we still have like 6 minutes. So I have one more question for you, which I always have to ask when somebody's talking about metrics. And it's, most of the metrics should be objective, but what about the subjective one? Because for me, like how the QAs trust the area or the feeling and so on should be also part of the metrics. What do you think?
Well, personally, it's my engineering background. When I'm talking about metrics, I always like to have numbers that support my decision, right? But as a QA, I also have the gut feeling, right? Sometimes we know that the metric is saying one thing, but then you know that the project is not ready yet. What I will advise is to have a mix between metrics that are coming from the numbers and then the metrics that you, as a tester, you say, well, this is green, this is not green, this is amber, but get ready to support your gut feeling, okay? My experience is that if you look into the right metrics, you will find it, okay? So if you are not seeing in the metrics, probably you are looking to the wrong ones. So your gut feeling always needs to be supported by metrics, even when it's subjective. Subjective is a matter of opinion, right? And your opinion can be easily challenged by someone else. Especially if you are now in an agile project, you have a tester, probably the junior guy in the team, not the senior one, not the most experienced one. And when the tech lead says, nope, we are good, even if the gut feeling of the tester say we are not, then he will not say anything, right? So you need to have this gut feeling, but you also need to have the numbers, the metrics that will support it. And then it's not your opinion, it's what the numbers say, okay? But again, as we saw, the numbers are not always telling the truth, so you need to be quite careful on the numbers that we are using.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all, thanks.